Beg your pardon? Yeah, that's fine, yeah. Okay, just need to, am I missing the recommendation? What am I missing? Oh, FCS, okay, we just got those, okay, good.
She is neither, but thank you.
Alrighty, Council, I'll call us to order at 6:30 for our meeting tonight, August 31st. Certainly welcome everybody who's watching us live stream and those who will watch us next week on Monday evening at Rogers. Council, if you could stand and join me in the council commitment, please. We are grateful for the many gifts which have been bestowed on Penetanguishene and its citizens, including the gifts of freedom, opportunity, and peace that we enjoy. May we be worthy custodians of all that has been entrusted to us. We ask that all in attendance and those who could not be here to assist us in promoting good government. May our decisions as members of council be enlightened, and may we all be strengthened in our awareness of our duties and responsibilities. May we be granted the wisdom, knowledge, will, and understanding to preserve the good fortune of the town for the benefit of all and to make good laws and wise decisions. Thank you all for attending. Item number 4 is declaration of pecuniary interest. Does any member have an interest to declare at tonight's session? Seeing none, at this time, if you find yourself in that position as we move on, let me know and we'll address it at that time. Moving on to 3A, so I jumped ahead actually. Moving on to 3A, it's moved by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Saunders, that the agenda of the regular council meeting of August 31st, 2016 be approved as presented. Any questions on tonight's agenda? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? And that is approved. I move on to 5A. It's moved by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Saunders, that in accordance with the Town of Penetanguishene Procedural Bylaw 2016-08, the Council of the Town of Penetanguishene move into an in-camera session to discuss personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board. All in favor of that motion? And that is carried, and we'll move in camera to the judges' chambers at the back, please. Alrighty, so it's moved by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Saunders, that the Council of the Town of Penetanguishene rise from in-camera session without a report. Final comments, questions on that? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? And that motion is carried. That 6A now becomes redundant. In the Section 7, adoptions of minutes not already confirmed. And the first one is moved by the Deputy Mayor, moved by Councillor Saunders, seconded by the Deputy Mayor, that the following minutes of council meetings be confirmed as adopted as circulated. Committee of the Whole Report 2016-13. Regular council minutes dated July 13th, 2016. Special council minutes dated July 13, 2016. Special Committee of the Whole Report 2016-14, dated August 24th, 2016, and Special Council Minutes dated August 24th, 2016. Any comments, errors, or omissions on those minutes? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? And those minutes are carried. Sorry, bear with me. Well, Stacey, these minutes are, motions are numbered 9, but they should be 7, so I'll just change them as I go. 7A, moved by Councillor LaRue, seconded by Councillor Mayotte, that the recommendations contained within Committee of the Whole Report 2016-13 of July 13, 2016, related to Recreation and Community Service section be approved. Does any member of Council wish to pull any of these items for further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the... Oh, Councillor... Beg your pardon? Oh, there we go. Thank you very much. Yeah, Section 9. Thank you very much. 9A, sorry. Very much. Thank you for that. Anybody wish to pull any of these minutes? Seeing none, call for the vote. All in favor? And that is carried. 9B, moved by Councillor Levy, seconded by Councillor Lauder, that the recommendations contained within Committee of the Whole Report 2016-13 of July 13, 2016, related to Planning and Development Services section be approved. Does any member of Council wish to pull any of these items? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? And those are carried. 9C, moved by Councillor LaRose, seconded by Councillor Rossin, that the recommendations contained within Committee of the Whole Report 2016-13 of July 13, 2016, related to Transportation and Environmental Services section be approved. Council wish to pull any of these items for further discussion. Councillor Rossin, please.
Thank you, Worship. I don't have the number in front of me. It's all jarbled, but the discussion about the Main Street that we had in that section.
Do you have a look to the clerk for a number on that?
Is that specifically that was the August 24th meeting, wasn't it? That's in the next set of Committee of the Whole minutes that we will be approving.
Right. Item number 10, Councillor Rossin? Yep, no problem. Any other comments on these ones? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? And those are carried. 9D, moved by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Saunders, that the recommendations contained within Committee of the Whole Report 2016-13 of July 13, 2016, related to Finance and Corporate Services section be approved. Any member of Council wish to pull any of these items for further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? And those are carried. Then move number 10, moved by Councillor Rowe, seconded by Councillor Rossin, that the recommendations contained within Special Committee of the Whole Report 2016-14 of August 24, 2016, related to Transportation and Environmental Services section be approved. And Councillor Rossin has comments on this.
This is the one I'd like to pull a piece on the Main Street discussion. I don't have that number in front of me, but...
Well, the whole topic's up for conversation here, Councillor Rossin, so feel free.
Now?
Sure, please.
I just wanted to take a second to talk about this because unfortunately we weren't live streaming last week and Rogers wasn't here and we had about an hour and 10-minute conversation. I think it was a healthy conversation and I think it's just important to update everybody on the whole discussion. So just to update everyone, and it's in the agenda package which our director provided and it's available to the public. We had healthy dialogue on the entire Main Street reconstruction. We talked about curb alignments. We talked about everything that involved the Main Street. So a couple things that was reviewed at that date. There was healthy discussion about the Thompson Road, so northbound, adding a right-hand turn lane at Thompson Road. So that was new, that was added, that we discussed and had some healthy debate on last time. The rest of the curb alignment, working our way northbound, remained virtually unchanged. We had some good discussion about having a controlled intersection at Edward Street to have an access point into the mall. We tabled the piece about the right in, right out into the mall because there'll be further discussion in the near future with council and senior management and the mall owner in the near future. And the rest of our curb alignment remained virtually unchanged for the rest of the Main Street coming north. But I just wanted to highlight that we had about an hour and 15-minute conversation that night. There's a lot of good stuff going on. Unfortunately, we didn't stream it or it wasn't available for people to see, so that's a 48-second snippet of our hour and 15-minute conversation. There's a lot of good stuff in the report, so I encourage people to read it, review it, and call any of us for any information.
And if there's a newspaper reporter in the room, maybe a good column to have after the meeting. Any other comments or questions on this one? Councilor LaRose, please.
Thank you, Worship. After doing the whole exercise, thought it went very well. Council's in good shape. We're going the right way. The only thing I had an issue with was where we changed the curb alignment at Points in Main. After reviewing after the meeting, when I was coming back through town, I went to that intersection, and I thought if we widened out that curb, and I believe, Brian, it was approximately a meter two, it takes away the ability to make a right-hand turn at that corner. So anybody leaving the mall, anybody leaving Tim Hortons, anybody proceeding east on Point Street, you would have to physically wait for a light. There isn't a room for two cars to pull up side by side at the light and for one car to make a turn. So I'm just thinking that if we, without that extra turning lane, we would be backing traffic up, possibly interfering with the entrance and exit from the mall on Point Street.
Thank you for those comments. Brian, do you want to speak to that thought?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through Your Worship to Councillor LaRose, just to clarify, so you're talking about the intersection of Point Street and Main Street, looking at putting a dedicated right turn lane at that intersection?
Correct. There's one there now.
And then yeah, we could definitely take a look at that for sure. Yep.
Other than that, Your Worship, everything else.
So I think what we need is a motion to kind of pull that particular item out and pass the rest, and then Councilor Rose can put a motion for her staff to entertain a right-hand turn. So if Council's agreeable with that, so if you want to move a motion to pull that out, Councilor Rose?
Yes.
Seconded by Councilor Rawson, I think. Any conversation from Council in terms of pulling that for a right-hand turn only?
Just to follow up.
Follow up on any of the rest of that? Sure, please.
I recall at that time, we're also talking about truck traffic, and I'm going to navigate that turn. I thought we were asking Brian to check into that a little more. So we did have some discussion about that point, so.
So maybe the whole intersection is, maybe the motion is to revisit the intersection of Points in Main, report back to Council with right-hand turns and truck turning radius. Council fine with that? Okay, so I'll look for, okay, so I've got a mover and a seconder for the balance of that. Any other comments on the balance of the recommendations? Okay, all in favor of those? Those are carried. And then any further conversation on the revisiting Points in Main motion by Councilor Rose and Councilor Rawson? Seeing none, all in favor of that motion? And that is carried. Moving on to motions which notice has previously been given, which were none. Notices of motion. Does any member of council have a notice of motion to present tonight? Councilor LaRose?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to make a motion that we suspend the rules, go in camera to get an update on a personnel matter.
Seconder for that motion. Discussion? All in favor of that motion? Opposed? And that is carried. So we'll reconvene in camera for an update. It'll be about 5 minutes, folks.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
Alrighty, so I need a motion to rise from in camera with the report. So moved by Councillor Rawson, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. Comments on the motion to, for the CEO to proceed as directed? Councillor Saunders.
Would you entertain a friendly amendment subject to advice of council?
Friendly amendment, subject to advice from council. Yep. Just so Jeff can double check with the legal. Okay. Friendly amendment, everybody's fine with that? I'm looking at the mover and seconder. Solicitor, yeah, yeah. Solicitor, yeah. Okay, we're all fine with that? Okay. So all in favor of that motion as amended? Okay, and that is carried. We are now on to consideration of bylaws, and we do have one bylaw being pulled, 26-41. Brian will have to come back with us on that one. So we do have a motion for the other one, which is 10A, and bylaw. See that here. Okay, yeah, so with the exception of 26-41, moved by Councillor Ross and seconded by Councillor LaRose, that the bylaws be signed and sealed by the mayor and clerk. Any comments on the remaining bylaws? Seeing none, all in favor? And those are carried. Questions from the media and public? None there. Announcements and inquiries, and I think Deputy Mayor had a great announcement last week, and maybe if we could ask you to re-articulate that with everybody, please. Don't forget your microphone, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, I just wanted to publicly congratulate our Public Works for the wonderful job they did this summer, and especially with the senior games that were hosted. Some of the senior games were hosted in our community, and I think staff went way beyond their duties. So I just wanted to publicly say that. And I know the roads department do a good job too, Brian, so don't want to leave you guys out. But I think our parks have increased immensely, and the boys are working, boys and girls, I should say, are working very hard to keep things updated. And also a very special comment to Roy Patnode for taking our flowers and bringing them back to life. If we look at our main street, even today, the flowers are still very beautiful, and I think Roy had a big hand in doing that earlier in the season. So hats off to Roy. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. I think we're calling Roy the flower whisperer.
Yeah.
He's done a tremendous job for us. Any other announcements or inquiries for tonight? Seeing none, I'll move on to item number 16, which is our confirmation bylaw, moved by Councillor Saunders, seconded by the Deputy Mayor, that confirming bylaw 2016-42 be signed, sealed by the Mayor and Clerk. All in approval of that motion, and that is carried. So Council is adjourned at 7:15 p.m., and we'll move right into Committee of the Whole, and I'll call Committee of the Whole to order, and I'll need a mover and seconder to approve tonight's agenda, please. Councillor Rawson, seconded by Councillor Lauder. Any amendments to tonight's agenda? All in favor of tonight's agenda? And that is carried. Pecuniary interest. Does any member of council have a pecuniary interest in tonight's meeting? Well, seeing none at this time, if you find yourself in that position as you move along, let me know. Presentations and delegations, and we do have two tonight to show us one, but the first one is from North Simcoe Housing Group, and it's regarding our second units, and it's a draft bylaw. And welcome, Kate. Michelle, can you make sure the light's on for Kate, please?
Just help me for a second. Does this move it along? Move the PowerPoint along, or should I go?
Probably
here?
have to go over here.
Okay.
Maybe one of the girls can help you out with that.
Pers-
Welcome,
Thank
Kate.
you.
And so council knows Kate's a member of the Tay Township Council, so I think this is your first time presenting to us, so
It is
welcome, and
indeed.
pleasure to have you here.
Well, thank you very much, Mayor Marshall and Council, for allowing us this time to present this thoughts around second units. So tonight I'm representing the North Simcoe Housing Working Group. Deputy Mayor Anita Dubois is your rep on that committee. So we just wanted to bring you some information and some of the things that we've been working on in relation to that. So to let you know why we're here today, and underscore the importance of second units as part of your municipal affordable housing solution. So we're going to present a framework to consider around bylaws for second units and encourage you to have more discussion. So in 2013, Simcoe County, as the housing authority for the area, adopted a 10-year affordable housing strategy and for homeless housing and homelessness prevention. And with regard to affordable housing, 2,685 new units were proposed by 2024. A variety of housing unit types are linked to your municipal strategy. Provincial, county, and municipal cooperation are needed in achieving these targets. So as part of the project, each geographical area in the county was tasked with coordinating and motivating local affordable housing initiatives. And that's what really started to form this North Simcoe Housing Working Group. So it is a small group made up of local council representatives and housing stakeholder representatives. So we have people from Shelter Now, Guest House, other folks who work with developing affordable housing. And the objective of that work is to extend the county's Affordable Housing Advisory Committee. So three key projects that we're working on and that we're talking about tonight is to provide bylaw guidance on second unit housing, to organize a Housing First project is part of the mandate of that group, and then to investigate novel housing solutions. And Deputy Mayor Stefan Walma has come up with some ideas around tiny houses, which is exciting, and you may hear more about that. Not necessarily tonight. So the primary target for Penetanguishene, I think as they described, is 44 affordable units. There is a strong need for affordable housing for seniors. I think you've identified that. And the areas needing attention are second units with financial assistance, grants and loans for affordable home ownership, and rent supplements. So there's three different forms, potentially, of second suites. One are internal, perhaps in a basement or a sectioned-off area of the house. It could be a second suite that is built and attached to the house, or it could be detached, as in garden suites. So tonight we're talking primarily about second suites as opposed to detached. Issues and concerns that may arise around this are the permission, there is provincial permission by right, except for planning concerns. So through Bill 104, Bill 140, the province has indicated that secondary suites or second suites are a right of people to create, and so the municipalities need to consider that. These second suites may not be affordable, but from the size that they're made, for the most part, we anticipate that it will create more housing, and thereby, through a ripple effect, will create more affordable housing. Unit numbering and emergency service access will be a concern that we need to consider. And are these important to the county, in the county? So there are 134 building permits issued for secondary and garden suites in 2015, and of these, approximately 114 are affordable units, are in the process of being created without government assistance. So you can see how they really add to our basket of affordable housing. So the form of housing that fits rural areas, and this relies on the safeguards already in your building permit process. They are supported by the county. The key bylaw features that we would want to stress are keep it simple. We would suggest that you add no additional parking requisites. And it applies to lots not on municipal services so that you don't restrict second units to areas that provide municipal water and wastewater, and that they are not restricted by areas subject to natural hazards. So in fact, if you've got areas that are prone to floodplains or are environmentally protected, certainly you would not necessarily want to have second suites added to those areas. So registration, we know will be required because of emergency services identification and county and provincial programs. So we're suggesting that registration is a one-time event, and the unit stays in the registry regardless. The key bylaw features you might want to consider, again, keeping it simple, that it requires a registrar, that registration is linked to satisfying your building permit requirements, and that the registration be small. So there was discussion around what it actually costs, and I know we're trying to make sure we cover our costs, but remember that this is your contribution to affordable housing. So the other issue on the framework bylaw is around a detached accessory building, and units are not within a residential dwelling, so these are the garden homes that we talked about, could be laneway homes. They present additional challenges. You need to consider how much lot coverage and the minimal lot size required. And again, the access for emergency services. If you see below the key bylaw features that you'll want to consider, that they will not be in conjunction with an internal second suite or second unit. So you wouldn't have both a garden suite and a second unit. There's no additional parking needed is what we're recommending. You would need to consider an unobstructed access to the street, and the suggestion that we have come to in consultation with some fire authorities is that that be at least 1 meter. The maximum height we're suggesting would be 4 meters with a maximum floor space of 75 square meters. So if you have no second unit bylaw in place, you could use this framework as a base to encourage the development of this important form of affordable housing. And if you do have second unit bylaws, then we suggest you review those to ensure you've not created unintended barriers to developing second units. Keep it simple. Thank you. Certainly, if you have any questions, I will try to answer them.
As best you can. Councillor Levy, please.
Thank you very much, Mayor Marshall, and thank you, Kate, for the wonderful presentation and the hard work that committee's done. I sat on that at the very beginning when it was first formulated. My main question is, where are we at now? Is your organization prepared to hand this off to the individual municipal planners and see what we do as a municipality with this?
I believe at this point it is actually going to the county for recommendation there, but we know that each municipality is going to be responsible for creating their own bylaws or looking at how it's enfolded in their official plan. So I think you're going to want to work with your planners to see how it's going to fit for you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Deputy Mayor, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Kate. It was very well done. And it's an opportune time for us. We are going through official plan review, so I know that we do have something in place, but there's one of our members who is a private developer who brings a lot of information to the table, but she was very concerned about the sizing of our second units, that it's on the small side, so that's something I think that we're probably going to try to address. So the official plan review is under review now, so it's great timing.
Councilor, any other
Thank
questions
you.
for Kate? Well, thank you very much. Enjoy your evening, and thanks
Thank
for coming
you.
down. And not on our agenda tonight, but we do have Will Baird here with us tonight, and Will, are going to talk about Pumpkin Inferno, so it's on the agenda later on, so if you could, you can present now, and then that way we won't hold you up in your evening, because it's a little later in the council agenda when we actually talk about it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Your Worship. Sure, okay. It's not every day that I come again to speak to people about gourds, but here I stand. I can drive it, sure. That's great, thank you. So thank you very much, Your Worship and Council, for hearing from us. We were very pleased with our partnership and the connection that we had with the town of Penetanguishene last year. We were very pleased as well with Pumpkin Inferno, and I hope you were as well. So we put together a deck here to overview a proposal for you for 2016. So as I mentioned last year, Halloween is, of course, a very significant industry, and I'm hoping that you saw some of the effects of this last year. According to Stats Canada, 7 in 10 Canadian consumers are planning to celebrate Halloween again this October. An average spend is around $300 per Canadian, with about $1.5 billion a year being spent. That spend is traditionally focused on family activities, candies, costumes, and stuff of that sort. The National Retail Federation found that in 2013, 65% of the consumers between the ages of 25 and 34, and 60% of 35 and 44 also plan to celebrate. 46.3% of those carve a pumpkin, and 20.8% of those visit a haunted house. And as we saw last year in Penetanguishene, there was a lot of folks here for us. Last year, in our first year of operation at Discovery Harbour, we saw 6,271 visitors, paid visitors, come through Pumpkin Inferno. There were more than that, but those were the folks that we were able to collect revenue from. 57% of the visitors were from the local area. This came from our data collection on site. 43% of those visitors came from a greater distance of more than 40 kilometers away. And that's a pretty significant figure, considering that those visitors drive a higher yield in terms of spending, and 38% increase of this figure over what we hosted in 2014. So a big number for us. In total, Discovery Harbour sees a little bit over 10,000 visitors a year. So with the addition of this additional 7,000 visitor, we almost doubled the total footprint of attendance. So thank you very much for your help in promoting Penetanguishene as the destination to come in October. Some of the very interesting stats from a tourism perspective were that 29% of the visitors actually came from 40 to 100 kilometers away, and 14% of those came from over 100 kilometers away. So we had some impact into far-reaching markets. The Ministry of Tourism has a program called the Tourism Regional Economic Impact Model, and it's an online program that calculates the impact of events and festivals to communities. So inputting all of the data that we collected at Pumpkin Inferno, we were able to find that the economic impact to Simcoe County, they can't narrow it down specifically just to municipalities, but to the county itself, was $502,000. Some of the key drivers inside that were $107,000 that was spent in private transportation, fuel, services and maintenance, etc. $149,000 in food and beverages, $147,000 in recreation and entertainment, $29,000 in store purchases, $23,000 in retail purchases, and $47,000 worth of retail, clothing, and public transportation. So fantastic numbers. Also, a really unique component of Pumpkin Inferno last year was the ability for us to collect a food donation at the door. And we generated almost 3,000 pounds worth of non-perishable food items that was donated to the Salvation Army Family Services here. And since the inception of hosting a Halloween event at Discovery Harbour, we're proud to say that we've contributed over 10,000 pounds of food to that. So noting that last year represented almost 30% of that. So I'm going to put you on the spot. How many visited Pumpkin Inferno last night, or last year? Well, it's a pretty good percentage, yeah. thank you for coming. 83% of the folks that did visit ranked the event an 8 or a 9 or a 10 out of 10, and 14% of all visitors stayed overnight in the area, which meant 56% of those visitors stayed more than between 2 and 4 nights in the region, which has a significant economic impact, as you can note locally. Stay in the average ranged, between 1 and 4 nights, but the average stay worked out to 1.9 nights in this region. Of course, the comments that we got were fantastic. The awesome carvings, lots of fun. We'll be back. Great job. Looking forward to it next year. Some of the partners that helped us in the presentation of it last year are listed here. You'll note that you guys are right on the top. That wasn't not only by coincidence of presentation, but the fact that you were a most significant person involved in that, and we're very thankful for your contribution. As well, we used the money that you gave us to leverage sponsorship dollars from the RTO and also from the County of Simcoe, which produced a wonderful marketing campaign. So this year, we are introducing another $100,000 worth of investment from the province into Pumpkin Furno. Of that money, we're spending money on more hand-carved pumpkins, so we're tripling the size of the display area, and we're also putting another of the 120 of that into the scare zone to up the level of screams that we get from that area. We're expanding the operating hours as well this year to take into account Sunday, because with the average stay of 1.9 nights, we're hoping that by adding that Sunday night into the mix, we'll be able to push that average stay up into the 2.5, 2.6 kind of area and get another night out of folks locally. So what I'm asking for tonight for your consideration is a sponsorship proposal here that has a total package value of $15,000, and I'm asking you to contribute $5,000 in investment for that. We'll take that money, we'll leverage that, of course, through the other partners that we have, and use that to market Pumpkin Furno and Penetanguishene. Thank you.
Thanks, Will. Council, this will come up later on in the agenda under RCS, but any questions for Will at this time? Councillor Lauder, and then Deputy Mayor, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Well, very good. Thank you very much. I'm really happy to see the success that you had last year. I know you had business incentive tickets that were distributed for businesses that help them, and that's one of the things that we're really excited about, is helping our businesses in downtown and throughout Penetanguishene. First of all, 2 questions, and the first one was, how successful was that portion? And B, are you considering to continue that activity again this year?
Well, I'll do the B first, yes. The A is, it depended really upon the organization. For instance, the Meridian Bank went over the top with their promotion for it. They were doing stuff for not only their members, but they were also doing stuff for staff and really encouraging the traffic there. So to some extent, we had a great success with it. To other extents, it wasn't super successful.
Follow-up?
Thank you, Will. And once again, the whole thing is getting our businesses, getting our people involved, and that is certainly a great example, Meridian, of the town backing this excellent exposition. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor, please.
Yes. Great presentation. It was a wonderful event. I was just wondering if any consideration was given to our food bank that is here in Penetanguishene.
That's a wonderful question, Anita, and I did not know that there was a food bank here in Penetanguishene, or most certainly we could make that contribution to them. I think the reason we did Salvation Army is that it was just the one that we had used in the past, so there's no, we'd be happy to do that for Penetanguishene.
I know our food bank is affiliated with the Roman Catholic Church here, but it does service all people, so I'm sure that they would very much appreciate anything you can do for them, and they do have a large organization, and maybe there's something that they may be able to help with.
Sure.
I'd be happy to give you names.
That'd be perfect, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Will. Moving on to item number 6, Section A, Transportation and Environmental Services section. I'll turn the chair over to Councillor Rawson, please.
Thank you, Worship. 6A is a consent agenda. It's recommended that the following consent agenda items, having been given due consideration, be received for information. We have one item, the Small Community Fund regarding Navy Lane. A mover? Moved by Councillor Rose, seconded by Councillor Mayat. Any discussion? Call for the vote. All in favor? And that is carried. B is matters for consideration. Number 1 is preventative road maintenance. Asphalt Rejuvenation Award recommended that council accept the sole source quotation submitted by Superior Road Maintenance for an estimated cost of $18,308.67. Net HST and HST rebate. A mover? Mayor Marshall, seconder. Councillor Lauder. Discussion? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor and opposed? That is carried. B2 is Great Lakes Adaptation Project Agreements. Recommended that council approve the entering into a letter of agreement with ICLEI, Local Government for Sustainability Management Incorporated, and that a bylaw for the contribution agreement be brought forward by staff for council approval. A mover? Deputy Mayor, seconder. Councillor LaRue. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor? And opposed? That is carried. This was funny, Deputy Mayor. That's the way we roll here. Number 3 is the Main Street Reconstruction Detailed Design Distribution Process. It's recommended that council approves the proposed Main Street Reconstruction Detailed Design Drawing Distribution Process. A mover? Councillor Mayat, seconder, Councillor Lauder. Discussion?
Just the intersection, again, at Points in Maine, just to make sure that it goes on for this one.
Noted. Any other discussion on this item? Call for the vote. All in favor? And opposed? And that is carried. And item 4 is a traffic parking bylaw amendment policy. It's recommended that council approve the traffic parking bylaw amendment policy. A mover? Mayor Marshall, seconder. Councillor Levy. Discussion? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor? And opposed? And that is carried. Number 5. Number 5 is the transit ridership update. It's recommended that council to receive the report for information and discussion. A mover? Councillor LaRue, seconder. Deputy Mayor, any discussion? Mayor Marshall.
Just a point of reference for our clerk. So this item should actually be under consent agenda, under for information. So just if we can move it in the future so that we can deal with it at that time.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Deputy Mayor.
Yes, just wanted to give council an update. We did have our second meeting just very recently. Great discussion. There was a dip in ridership through the summer, but we're hoping that things will improve again. And also want to inform council that we are speaking to our local school board people, trustees, and transportation people to see if there's some kind of a partnership we can get involved with in reference to students perhaps needing transit after the actual school hour, after or before the school hour. So we're working on that, so we'll keep you posted. But other than that, things are working well. And I do believe that we're close to having a design for the wrap that will go on the bus. And I think we want to have a little bit of a splash when we do that. So keep posted.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Any further discussion on this item? I just have one, Brian. We talked about the electronic way that we capture the riders getting on and off the bus. Would we be able to see a report, or can you put it in our consent agenda that we can see, is there trends, like are we busier at a certain time and not? Like, I'm wondering, do we need to have this much time, would this much time work, and where's the peak riders coming? Like, if the bulk of our people are hopping on at 7 and then come back at 5, do we really need to run from 10 to 2? So could we see a breakdown by hour, by day, if the computer's doing it? Could we see it instead of an aggregate total?
Yeah, I think our transit fare software enables us to do that, so we can definitely include that in the next update.
Appreciate that. Okay, we'll call for the vote. All in favor? And opposed? And that is carried. And referrals to upcoming agenda and staff, it's recommended that Transportation Environmental Services section endorse the following additional and existing referrals to upcoming agendas and staff. Thompson's Road extension options, key performance measurements for road operations, the best practices for the redevelopment of Main Street, Severn Sound Environmental Association Park Maintenance Plan, transit ridership numbers, and we just said, well, it'll be on the consent agenda. I think we could probably take that off if we just leave it on the consent agenda, if everyone's okay with that. Policy regarding the road direction amendments, Penetanguishene bus identification, Main and Thompson Road intersection, and Septage and hauled waste EA update. Are there any additions, revisions to this? Mover? Moved by Councillor Roux, second by Councillor Levy. Call for the vote. All in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Questions from the media and public? Seeing none, T&E is done.
Thank you very much,
Record.
Councillor Rawson. And move over to Recreation and Community Services, and I'll turn the chair over to Councillor LaRue, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moving on to recommended action that the following consent agenda items having been given due consideration be received for information: Curling Club minutes dated July 6, 2016, and correspondence from Anne Gagne Replax and Rotary Champlain Wendat Park. Mover, Marshall. Seconder, Councillor Roth. Concerns or comments? Deputy Mayor?
I just wondered, the letter from the local resident, I'm not sure what we can do about that, but I guess we shouldn't lose touch with this particular item. I see that our staff have something to say.
Jeff?
Through you, Chair LaRue, in response to Deputy Mayor DeBoe's question, staff have received the letter in July. We thought it was prudent to put it on this agenda to keep council informed, given that it is addressed to all members of council. And at a staff level, in the absence of a director of Recreation and Community Services, which this would typically get directed to, we are aware of it, and we're certainly looking into it, and we'll attempt to rectify in as quick of a fashion as possible, and certainly will ensure that we correspond with Ms. Gagne accordingly.
Thank you, Jeff. Councillor Saunders?
Just a quick question with respect to the minutes, Mr. Chair. There's a comment here that we need an audit done every year because of our loan agreement with the town. We still own about $27,000. Do they mean owe rather than own? And if it's not owe, I wonder what it refers to.
Gary, can you respond to that?
It's the Curling Club minutes, Carrie, is what we're referencing, and I think Councillor Saunders I think it might be the balance of the loan, but I have to pull up the minutes.
I don't know the balance of the loan off the top of my head, but I can certainly follow it up with you. I think the last time that we sent correspondence related to it, that number is not ringing a bell with me, but I can follow up.
It may just be a typo or an error in their minutes, and our rep could bring that to their attention.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, nothing further. All in favor? Under matters for consideration, 1, a designation of 18 Robert Street East. Recommended action that council hereby accepts the recommendation of the Penetanguishene Heritage Committee that 18 Robert Street East be considered for designation under Section 29 of the Ontario Heritage Act, and that staff be directed to finalize the draft designation bylaw and commence the notification of intent to designate process as provided under the Ontario Heritage Act. Now, this was brought before council some time back, and my concern was whether or not the owners had been consulted, and I'm told now by our clerk, or our Stacy, that yes, that has been done, and maybe Stacy, you could give us an update on the process, or Jeff, whatever.
I think really under background, it speaks to the fact that, so this was raised as Chair LaRue spoke to on April 27th, and since that time, staff have been in contact with the owner, who has concurred and agreed with the designation. So it's back in front of committee for their discussion. I think that's fair fairly, in summary, that's kind of the update on the report.
Okay, could I have a mover? Councillor Rawson, seconder, Deputy Mayor. Any further discussion? There being none, all in favor? 2, the pumpkin event financial requests. Recommended action that the request from Huronia Historical Parks for $5,000 to help with marketing of the 2016 Pumpkin Inferno event be approved. Mover, Councillor Lauder, seconder, Councillor Levy. Concerns, questions, whatever. Councillor LaRose.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As much as I like the event, I think it's a great event. I'm glad that they're having it up there. I will not be supporting our 5,000. I don't know whether we had it in the budget, and when you look at their numbers on how they went through it, I don't believe most of these people were staying in Penetanguishene, obviously, because there is no place for them to really stay around town, that many people. I have a great problem with the way they do their numbers, how they say it made $500,000, blah, blah, blah. When you look at those numbers, I mean, every kid that went would have had to have paid $25 for gas, and every car would have been $100. It just doesn't, the math doesn't quite work out. Being that it is an area event, and I understand that the county does contribute, I just wonder whether we have approached or whether they will be approaching neighboring municipalities to kick in rather than us.
Well, I think the fact of the matter, Councillor Rose, that it is in Penetanguishene itself, Discovery Harbour, and I know that our Treasurer Carey has indicated that dollars would be available from our tourism advertising budget. I personally feel that it was a great event, brought a lot of people through the municipality, puts us on the map, and I think 5,000 to me in the form of advertising that we receive from this thing, I have no problems with it. However, further comments or concerns? Councillor Marshall, or Deputy Mayor Marshall.
Thank you very much, Councillor LaRue. I have no problems. I totally support this. I mean, the fact of the matter is breakfast television, they couldn't have said the town of Penetanguishene more times in front of a 250,000 people audience than they did in that one morning, let alone the traffic and the stats they bring forward. So I'm 100% supportive of this. I think it's a good idea. It's going to expand. It's only going to get better, and I know members from both staff and council have thoughts on how to make that be a better event. So we've got the budget for it. I think it was well done last year, and appreciate the fact that it's in our tourism budget this year, and we still have untapped funds from our good fund, or good idea fund is available as well. So totally supportive.
Further comment? Councillor Lawson.
So I appreciate the budget piece. My one question will be, if I look back to the, can't remember the name of it, slip slide there that happened. We always, the urban slide, we always have an earmarked amount, a dollar sign, but I wonder our in-kind contribution. I know staff have spent a lot of time that might not have been forecasted or what we might have thought. And I suspect Pumpkin Inferno wasn't as much as Urban Side and some of the other events, but did this stretch our resources beyond what we could do? Because a number we can quantify the 5,000, but are we stretching staff? And is our in-kind being reflected if that was in play?
Marlene, are you able to respond to that?
Thank you, Councillor Rawson. So I was here last year for the Pumpkin Inferno event, and if I understand what you're asking is for staff resources for helping them with the event. What we did last year is we helped advertise it on our basic social media. We helped deliver some posters, but we also went to the restaurants and the local businesses and asked if they would help support it by maybe staying open later in the evening. As far as staff resources, it wasn't over a lot compared to the events that we host on our own. It's something that I think that we can incorporate with our regular hours and regular scheduling.
Thank you. Okay. Further questions or concerns? Bernie, we move to have it approved. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Moving on to waterfront programming, Happy Paddling. Recommended action that staff be directed to prepare and sign an amendment to the agreement with Happy Paddling to allow for program to be delivered at Huronia Park during swim advisories at Rotary Champlain Wendat Park. Mover, Councillor LaRose. Seconder, Councillor Lauder. Comments or concerns? Councillor Rawson.
Just a quick question about the agreement. The new toll booths that were put in down at Rotary Park, was that in the agreement? So I ask because is that going to be required at Huronia Park? And if it's the town resource, was that ours? Is that theirs? Who paid for that? And is the same caveat going to be expected at Huronia?
Maybe I could ask the clerk to comment on that.
Thank you, through your chair. So the Happy Paddling agreement actually was unrelated to the huts. We weren't sure the huts were, when they were arriving, it was completely separate. They don't require the use of the huts, but it is helpful for them. This wouldn't be them operating out of Huronia Beach necessarily. It would be, they would have a booking to tour our harbor, and if the water advisory is there, they would then take them to Huronia Beach instead. It wouldn't be a new home base for them necessarily.
Okay. Thank you, Stace. Councillor Lauder.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd just like to also point out that the problem that's coming up here is pollution of our beaches, slight, and that's being caused by our Canada geese that are down there right now, and they're causing a little bit of problem. We've dealt with them to some extent in our Rotary Park, but we are looking and to deal with that a lot more. I know Happy Paddle themselves have got a little bit of suggestions as to what might come forward, and I know they've been in contact with our CAO, and there's a little bit of communication. So I think this is just a stopgap for them to keep active and be a part of our activities on the waterfront, and as such, our activities within Penetanguishene. So I love the idea, and I think it's important that they have as much capability of activity as possible.
Okay, further questions or concerns? There being none, all in favor? Carried. Moving on to the 150th Anniversary Canada celebrations. Recommended action that the 2017 summer event budget be increased from $25,000 to $50,000 to host a special event to celebrate Canada's 150th anniversary in 2017, and that staff be directed to apply for and accept grants that are available, i.e. Ontario 150 Community Celebration Program, to assist the town in enhancing the size and quality of our 150th Canadian celebration event. Now, the event and the celebration itself, it is intended that it's going to be something of a fair-sized large event. We're looking at having Canadian Francophone, Anglophone musicians at the amphitheater during the daytime, and hopefully a major Canadian band or musician headlining the evening. We're looking at performance by our local Indigenous communities, such as drummers and dancers, commemorate the Samuel de Champlain, historical boat cruises, time capsule ceremony, which is going to be a great part of something that we had discussed and thought of doing during the Champlain event, but put it off to the 150th. Fireworks displays, outdoor movies, kids zone, beer garden, and partner with Discovery Harbor for events. And naturally, the Recreation and Events Coordinator will head up the planning and organization of the event, along with a joint committee of staff and local community organizations. It is intended to pick a date that is not going to coincide with other major dates, such as the July 1st event. And so therefore, it is with that we are asking for this one time that the summer budget for the summer event be increased from 25 to 50. Mover, Mayor Marshall, and seconder, Deputy Mayor Duba. Comments or concerns? Councillor Rawson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. When I first look at this, I think it's great, and I wonder if 50,000 is enough, if it should make a little more, and that's a hug coming from me. But I also wonder, is now the right time? we're going to be getting into budget here in a little while, and I wonder why we're pulling one piece out to talk about it separately in 2016. Why don't we, if this is top of mind of all of us, why don't we make it top of mind at budget time and talk about it during budget, make it a priority instead of talking about 1% of our budget tonight, and then we'll resume budget except for this piece later. So I say, Carrie's bringing some of that forward tonight. She's coming up with a timeline. I don't think this is going to prevent us from doing brainstorming, doing everything we want. I say, why do we cap it at 50? Let's do what we can, but I don't know why we want to capstone this tonight. I would rather move this to the budgetary process and not confirm it tonight. So I'll let everyone else talk, and I'll probably amend something to that effect.
Mr. CAO.
Through you, Chair LaRue, through to Councillor Rawson, the reason it's in front of us tonight is generally with, I would say most grant applications actually require a resolution of committee through to council. And if it doesn't, it's always been my practice and always will be my practice to bring grant applications, essentially requests through to council to apply and accept the funds. And we need to identify in the grant application our contribution to the grant, and as such, that's why it's in front of you today, or tonight.
Yep. Councillor Levy.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I'm not clear from this recommendation that our summer event budget be raised to 50,000, or the budget for this one event be 50,000.
Marlene, could you respond to that, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To Councillor Levy. It's my understanding that Penetanguishene always hosts one summer event, and what we're asking is that our summer event become the 150th celebration. And that being said, as our staff committee would strategically plan the date that we feel would be good to not interfere with other local events that are happening, that we can draw the best amount of people to our event.
Councillor Saunders.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm torn on this one because I very, very, very much, as a member of the Budget Committee, am unhappy when I see items that are being approved, significant items that are being approved in advance of the budget process. Now, I very equally appreciate our CAO's explanation that there has to be some reference in a grant application to the amount committed by council. I am equally torn with respect to my colleague's comments that $50,000 may not be enough for this one-time event. And so I'm looking for some kind of wording that would support this in principle so that you can go forward and support it, not just at the level of $50,000, but potentially more depending on the will of the Budget Committee. I think it's a great idea. I'm not arguing the concept at all. But I do agree that with my colleague, Councillor Rawson, I hate to see stuff, and this has happened every year, always for good reasons. People try and preempt the budget process, and then the budget process becomes fragmented and oftentimes unrealistic. So reluctantly, I suppose, I would support this. Reluctantly only in the sense that it preempts our budget process. But in terms of getting the grant applications in, if it has to be, it has to be.
Mayor Marshall.
Thank you very much. I appreciate maybe the solution to Councillor Saunders' conundrum there is some kind of upset limit. I wouldn't know what that would be, but in fairness to staff, the reason this is coming for us is, the province of Ontario releases these funding applications mid-year. This came out about 3 weeks ago, and we got till this Friday to actually 5 o'clock to actually submit our application. So in fairness to our staff here, folks, this is not, the province threw this out there and said, here it is, if you want to play, here's when you have to apply by. An upset that I'd look maybe Councillor LaRue to, either the CEO or Marlena to guide us, as I don't disagree with the thought that maybe it should be more, but I don't know how much more it should be.
Councillor Levy.
I would suggest for staff's purposes, we make a decision tonight on the $50,000 so the applications can be filled out and sent on time by Friday, and that at the budget, during the budget process, if there is the will of council to contribute more, we could certainly do that. But I'd say we should approve this tonight so staff can hit the send button.
Councillor Rawson.
I hear Councilor Levy's piece, my question about the grant then, virtually everything we've talked about has been a percentage of what we've got. The more skin we have, the more potential we can get. So if the appetite is 40,000, or if the appetite is 70,000 or 100,000, our grant is according to how much we're willing to kick in. So I hear the timing issue, but
Jeff, do you have a comment?
Yeah, through you, Chair LaRue, my suggestion, if it's the appetite of council to increase or at least entertain increasing our share, my suggestion was going to be to make a friendly amendment identifying an upset limit of $75,000, and then that at least gives staff the ability to crunch some numbers with a grant application, and not to say that we're guaranteed or we're automatically going to submit it for $75,000 share from the town, but it certainly gives far more flexibility for staff. With that being said, however, we've identified that we can make this work. You know, there might be some limitations, so I'm open to either. But if it's the will of council to entertain increasing that limit, that would be my suggestion.
Councilor Levy?
I think 50,000 is more than enough from the town's point of view, keeping in mind there will probably be county money and provincial money. 25 years I've been involved in special events in this town. We've never had a budget anywhere close to that, not for tall ships, not for Battle of Georgian Bay, not for Canada 125. We've done it with sponsorship, with partnerships, and with tie-in from upper tier. So I'd really say that for a one-day party, folks, 50 grand's a lot of money.
Councilor Saunders.
Mr. Chair, would you entertain the friendly amendment that I think accomplishes all the objectives, and the recommendation would simply read it be increased from 25 to a minimum of $50,000. And then council in its budget deliberations can raise that if it has the ability, but you're going to be guaranteeing our staff at least $50,000.
That's right.
So
I agree.
That's my friendly amendment is simply a minimum of $50,000.
Okay. Carrie, do you have a comment?
Just one comment to add to the conversation, just in terms of Councillor Saunders' comment about a minimum of, I think by the time we get to budget deliberations, we will, hopefully, I believe we will have heard back from the grant application that we're submitting, so then we could have another conversation in terms of did we get the grant application, were we successful in securing the grant application, or are we trying to do this event with our own funds in terms of an additional partnership or sponsorship funds.
Okay. Councillor Watson.
just one quick follow-up. If we've always budgeted the 25, we have a little side fund where we seem to find money. Like, it seems to me Pumpkin Inferno twice now, we haven't budgeted it, but we found it. Aquapalooza, we didn't budget, we found it. So I'm wondering how much is in these found area that we were able to move over from a contingency fund, call it what you want, but it wasn't earmarked.
Gary?
Yes, in terms of the events that you mentioned that we did contribute to, we do have a tourism advertising budget, an annual budget of, currently it's at $13,000, and it hadn't in the past been fully utilized, and we were, so I mean that's where the additional funds have been coming from. So there was plans to do increased advertising in terms of attracting tourists. From what I understand, in addition to the Southern Georgian Bay visitor guide that we have been participating in. So that's the budget line where some of those smaller contributions to partnering events have come from.
Thanks, Gary. And I'm more than good with the 50, and I think Councillor Saunders is right. I just hope we don't increase our tax amount that people need to pay, and that we reinvest some of these things that we're not using and invest it wisely. And to echo Councillor Levy's about the amount, if the HIP, unfortunately, won't be able to come next year, but if Blue Road use our new amphitheater, it's going to cost us some dollars. So let's think big.
So we could proceed with the recommendation and that is here now, because our summer budget is 25. So what we're asking from this recommendation is that we increase it to 50,000 in order to be able to apply for the grants. So
commenting along Councillor Rawson's line. I know that the Rotary Club has had opportunity to have events down in the park, which unfortunately we had big names, but things didn't unfold like we were hoping. So I agree, if we got a big name, and maybe the Rotary Club might be a partner, but it would be nice that if the municipality had some dollars to put into attracting the big name. So I like Councillor Saunders to a minimum of. Thank you.
Mayor Marshall?
The challenge with to the minimum of those, we're applying on Friday, so if we tell staff they got 50, it's 50. So if we want to make it 75, we need to do that tonight. Because at the end of the day, the application goes in, and you can't, it's not a negotiation after that. Here's what we're doing for this amount of money. We're looking for matching dollars. And I'll look to Marlene to correct me if I'm wrong on that, but anything I've been involved is the application goes in, here's how much we're committed for, here's what we're going to do, and you hope that they'll match the effort and bless it. So if you need more money, now's the time to ask, because otherwise it's 50 and that's where we're at.
Councillor Saunders?
Well, just speaking as one individual, I'm certainly prepared to support the 50, but I wanted to leave the door open to more if we can find more. And so council is saying to staff, go ahead on the basis of 50 for your grant applications. And in fact, the total sum down the road might be a little more after we've examined the entire budget structure.
It's possible. We don't know. Councillor Rose?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I believe we're in at 50,000, and I think that should be the number that we put on our application to send. If we can attract other partners, if we can attract the Rotary Club, if we can get Discovery Harbor on board to give back some money and do that type of stuff, that would be a great way to go. Then the budget would be increased. But for our portion to send $50,000, as the report reads, why don't we just leave it as is, as sits? They can send it off on Friday.
Okay, I think that we've had enough discussion on the matter. I'm going to call the vote on this. Then recommended action that the 2017 summer event budget be increased from $25,000 to $50,000 to host a special event to celebrate Canada's 150th anniversary in 2017. All in favor?
Sorry, Councillor, just point of order, though. We have a motion on the floor for minimum.
Yeah,
So-
yeah.
If you wish, I'm quite prepared to be at a formal amendment.
And I'd be quite prepared to second that.
Okay. So, make your formal amendment.
Formal amendment is where we insert a minimum of
This is
Okay.
flexibility.
Second?
Yeah, I'll second that, yeah.
Okay, all in favor? Opposed? It looks like it's carried.
We just went through the whole thing about not putting a minimum in an application, that we had to put in the exact, it won't be in the application. Okay.
No, it's not in the application. Okay, moving on. Referrals to upcoming agenda staff, that the Recreation and Community Service section endorse the following additional and existing referrals to upcoming agendas and staff. Tourism, advertising, print online for future consideration. Investigate advertising company opportunities. Recreation asset management plan, parks and facilities. Arena benches options for comfort. Cycling strategy and curling club operations review fall of 2016. Mover, Councillor Rawson, seconder, Councillor Rose, all in favor. Questions from media and the public? We're good, we're done.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to Section C, Planning and Community Development Services, and I'll turn the chair over to Councillor Levy, please.
Thank you, Mayor Marshall. Starting with the consent agenda, recommended action that the following consent agenda items, having been given due consideration, be received for information. Number 1, Building Comparative Report dated June and July 2016. Correspondence from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs, Coordinated Land Use Planning Comment Extension. 3, Huronia Animal Control Report dated June 2016. And correspondence from the County of Simcoe County of Simcoe call for proposals for municipal interest in affordable rental developments. Do I have a mover? Councillor LaRose, seconded by Councillor Saunders. Any discussion, questions, comments? Mayor Marshall?
I'd like to pull item 2 for discussion, please, the coordinated land use planning.
Thank you very much, Mayor Marshall. So we pull that, then we vote on the others? Okay. Number 2 will be pulled for further discussion. As for the rest of the consent agenda, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you very much. Going back to the correspondence from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs, Coordinated Land Use Planning Comment Extension. This deals with the updated 2016 growth plan, provincial growth plan, and I'll imagine you want Andrea to
Yes, just some, yeah, I'll certainly move it to receive it for information. Just for clarification, though, as I went through the numbers, and I know we're commenting back, but the challenge for the town of Penetanguishene is, right now, they're telling us that we have to grow it, build at 50 people per hectare, and now they're moving it up to 80 people. But for the town of Penetanguishene to actually hit the 80 people per hectare, I hate that word, average, means we have to be building at 130 people per hectare, which is impossible for us. So right now, for instance, at 80 people per hectare out of every 42 or 100 units being built, 42 of them are single-family units. If you go to the 130 mark, 6 single-family units out of every 100 units being built in the town of Penetanguishene would be single-family. People don't move to Penetanguishene to live on top of one another. Our fire trucks don't go beyond 4 stories, so on and so forth. So I looked at the planner going, when we submit our feedback back to the province of Ontario, I think we have to have a sobering executive summary of the regulations in front of us and the impact in town of Penetanguishene in terms of our inability to actually hit these numbers. And I get that we can go through the painful process of appealing and going through that and spending lawyers' money and time and energy in that. But the reality is, right out of the gate, the regulations, we can't hit them, in my opinion, and I'll look to the planner to verify that, but my numbers say we got to be building at 130 people per hectare to hit the 80 average they're asking us to do.
And we can't hit 50, and we know that.
Thank you very much. You can't hit the 50. Thank you.
How would you, either Andrea or Mayor Marshall, how would you like to proceed on the message we send from Penetanguishene to the province, and what assistance can the county give us? Andrea, please.
Thank you very much, Councillor Levy. So with that letter, formal letter from the province, the comment extension is to October 30th or 31st. I am preparing a report for future Committee of the Whole meetings with my review and comments for committee's discussion, and should see it in September.
Thank you very much. Councillor Louder?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a question to Andrea. This wish or future possible demand to go to 80 people per hectare, does that not mean new building is to meet that qualification? It doesn't mean that the new standards for all of Penetanguishene must meet that, including old standard or current buildings have to meet that standard, have to meet the new average. Is that correct, or which one is right?
Through you, Councillor Levy, to Councillor Lauder, that is it's not per individual building or development to meet that. It's municipally wide. It's applied municipally wide. So you would take, some may be a single detached development, some other might be an apartment building, and so you take over the aggregate of how much land's been developed and how many people can live in those residential units. So it's not per development. It's municipally wide.
But what I'm asking is that, does it look at our current population and our current land use and say, well, we're currently at 10, and as such, we want to go to 80, and as Mayor Marshall says, well, in order to do that, we have to hit 130 in all new development? Or is it all new development must respect that we must hit that 80 mark?
No, so not each development has to hit that 80 mark, no.
But no, the
town-wide,
accumulation of new development.
It's current and old, Councillor Lauder, so town-wide, we have to hit the 80, including existing. My house, your house, Debbie's house, all the math in, at the end of the day, we need to be at 80. And to get there, we have to get to 130. We struggle to get to 50. So it's a real, the legislation from a town of Penetanguishene perspective in most small-town rural Ontarios, we're in the tank before we even start the conversation. So I just want to make sure that somehow, and I'd encourage Andrea to make sure your planning, professional planners across small-town rural Ontarios are articulating that same message. Otherwise, you're going to have 350 small-town Ontario folks going through amendments and asking for exemptions and going through the pain of lawyers, and the workload is just insurmountable for the province and for our small towns. So somehow we've got to get that message out, and I think it's got to come from the professionals, the politicians like us, 9 of us sitting here can certainly articulate, but I think the message has to come from those with professional degrees saying, listen folks, this cannot be happening because we can't deliver what you're asking us to deliver.
Thank you very much, Mayor Marshall, for bringing up that very important point. And I would ask our planner to perhaps sit down with Section Michael and I, Councillor Lauder and I, and discuss some further strategies so that whether it's getting together with a group of your peers province-wide, if you have any kind of online organization, or come up with a strategy that could see a little more cohesiveness in small towns' response, perhaps get small urban caucus involved. I'll look to Mayor Marshall for some advice there, but this is very, very important to the future of our town and to development, and so we'll be hearing more about it. Thank you very much, Andrea and Mayor Marshall. Do I have a mover for that? Mayor Marshall? Seconder? Councillor LaRose? All those in favor? Opposed? None? Carried. Thank you very much. Moving on to matters for consideration. Pre-servicing agreement, Balil Heights Phase 2, recommended action that the town of Penetanguishene enter into a pre-servicing agreement with the Balil Penetanguishene Developments Limited respecting Phase 2 of the Balil Heights subdivision, file number Pen Sub 2004-01, upon final approval of the engineering design by the Director of Public Works, and that a bylaw be passed to authorize the mayor and clerk to sign the Balil Heights Phase 2 pre-servicing agreement for execution. Any questions for our planner on this? Call for a mover. Mayor Marshall, seconded by Deputy Mayor Dubo. I'm sorry. I know this way. I'll ignore them. Further discussion? Seeing none? All those in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. Parking agreement, Waypoint Center, recommended action that a bylaw be passed to authorize a parking agreement with Waypoint Center and G4S Secure Solutions be approved. This is a standard annual event where we designate some of the Waypoint security staff to enforce our parking enforcement on that property there. Mr. Lees?
Through you, Chair Levy, I think I'll maybe pass it over to Andrea because it's actually not an annual event. This is actually a new ask, a new request that's come from Waypoint. So if you don't mind, I'll pass it over to, I think Andrea is probably best, and Stacy may chime in where necessary.
Okay.
But I think that's probably most appropriate.
With them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Levy. So Jeff is right in a sense. So this is a new agreement for the municipality. However, years past, the municipality had entered into an agreement with Waypoint for parking enforcement on their private property. It was suspended during the reconstruction of Waypoint, and so they've approached us now once again to authorize their private security team to enforce parking on their sites. Perhaps don't believe there's anything else maybe I could add to that. I'll add that the anticipated implementation date would be October 1st. So it's Waypoint themselves who are reorganizing their parking structure, and that's when they are bringing it on towards their staff.
Thank you very much. Any further questions for Andrea or the clerk on this issue? Okey-doke. Councillor Saunders.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Who currently enforces the parking up at Waypoint? Anyone?
Through you, Councilor Levy, to Councilor Saunders. The OPP have the ability to enforce parking up there, so
They have
parking
the
in
ability to do a lot of things. My question was, who is enforcing it?
the OPP, as of right now, are enforcing it.
I noticed one thing in here that was attractive, that the town will receive all revenue generated through the issuance of parking tickets. Is that different than it is right now?
No, it's not different. I guess what's different at this time is that the way that Waypoint is organizing their parking. So they have gone through and set aside specific areas for staff parking, and that they will be requesting their staff to obtain permit parking there. And so that wasn't something that was always done. So this is a new process for them, and so as a result, the town may realize additional revenues than was previously done through the parking enforcement by the OPP.
And I understand it's hard to project. Are you suggesting we have been receiving money from parking tickets in the past?
Yes. That's correct, yes.
Lots?
I don't have those numbers off my hand. I wouldn't think so.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, could you remind me, please, did I get a mover and a seconder before we started the discussion? I think not. Could I have a mover for that item, please? Councilor Rose, seconded by Councilor Saunders. Since we've had our discussion. Oh, I'm sorry. Kick me next time. No, don't. All those in favor? And carried. Thank you very much. Oh, my God, I'm terrible. Referrals to upcoming agenda and staff. Referrals at the Planning and Community Development Services section endorse the following additional and existing referrals to upcoming agendas and staff. Promotion of development and growth annually, Thompson Road West Extension, summer 2017. Development charges, targeted incentives and opportunities, summer 2017. Legal opinion on draft plan approval, approved subdivision, fall 2016. Land inventory analysis, fall 2016. Agribusiness in the industrial zone, fall 2016. Secondary suite report, summer 2017. Just on that last one, Andrea, is that still the plan for the secondary suite report, summer 2016, or do you see moving that up?
Through you, or to you, Councillor Levy, that is still the anticipated deadline or date of when you'd see a fulsome report. The official plan review process will examine and look at a little bit closer the provision of secondary suites through the policies of the OP. However, upon completion of that, we may have some further direction that may give us some guidance on how we can actually update the regulations having to do with secondary suites, and that's really where we get action happening, is when the official, or when the zoning bylaw is updated.
Thank you very much. Any additions to the referral items? Seeing none. Questions period from media and public? Ian? No? Okay, we're done. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll go on to Section D, Finance and Corporate Services, and I'll turn the chair over to the Deputy Mayor, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Our consent agenda recommended action that the following consent agenda items, having been given due consideration, be received for information. The 2016 quarterly financial summary, second quarter. Number 2, request for support, City of Oshawa, General Motors Autoplex. Number 3, correspondence from CUPE. They're asking for a proclamation for Child Care Worker and Early Childhood Educator Appreciation Day. Also, number 4, correspondence from Teachers of English as a Second Language Association of Ontario, asking for a proclamation, English as a Second Language Week, and correspondence from the Simcoe County Fetal Alcohol Spectrum Disorder, proclamation for a FASD Awareness Day. Are there any items that someone would like to pull at this time? Yes, Councillor LaRose? Number 4, yes. English as a second language? Thank you. I also would like to pull number 5. I would just like to speak to that proclamation as a member of the Simcoe County Health Unit. I just wanted to speak to that. Okay, so I will call for a vote. I will ask for a mover and a seconder for the other reports. Moved by Councillor Rawson, second by His Worship. All those in favor? Carried. Number 4, Councillor LaRose.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wonder if we should modify it, that it should read, in my opinion, English or French as a first language, rather than opposed to trying to make English a second language to other people. It's Canada, that is our 2 official languages, and they should read that that should be the first language, and carry on.
Thank you, Councillor LaRose. I think I saw some hands go up. Councillor Levy?
I would just respond that the clients of these classes have a first language. They are now learning a new language, which is English or French. So ESL is the term for instruction for newcomers and people, well, newcomers to the country primarily, who do not speak English or French. That's.
Thank you. Mayor Marshall?
Certainly, yeah, the English is a second language. It's critically important. So right now, we speak in the county of Simcoe 107 mother tongues, not dialect, but mother tongues. And there was a time when people actually immigrated to Toronto and actually then migrated north to live up here for all the reasons that we do. And what we're finding now, those people are actually directly immigrating right into our neighborhoods. So they're not going to the GTA or Ottawa. They're landing into Penetanguishene, or landing into Midland, or landing into North Simcoe. The English is the second language, as Councillor Levy's, that's what it is. That is the function. That is the program. That is the learning one. So I don't think we could change it, Councillor LaRose, in terms of, that's the group, and that's the service that they deliver. But I can tell you it's a critically important service day to day. And we had a tree up here in our library that we actually had people come up and fill out a leaf and tell us where they came from. And so when they came in here, I thought, Penetanguishene, how many people would actually put leaves in our tree to tell us about their immigration path to Penetanguishene? Our tree was full. So even in our own backyard, there's a lot of new immigrants and a lot of activity. So this is an important one. I think we should support it, and I certainly do.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm not so sure that we're in a position to change a proclamation. I understand where you're coming from, Councillor LaRose, but I think what's before us, we should vote on that. So I need a mover and a seconder. Councillor Levy, Councillor Louder, a seconder, and I will call, yes, discussion. Councillor Saunders. Oh, okay, very good. We have a mover and a seconder. I will call for the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? The motion was carried. And then I wanted to speak to the proclamation of the this is a long one, so maybe I'll go. I know that there is information here in front of all of us, but I will maybe very quickly stipulate the importance of women who are pregnant not drinking alcohol. I know that that's been something that's been out and about for many years, but this proclamation does lay out what it's costing society when in fact a child is born with this syndrome. So I just, as I said, wanted to point that out. It is online for our viewers if they would like to read it in its entirety. So could I have a mover and a seconder? Mayor Marshall and Councillor Saunders, all those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Move on to matters for consideration. We have a request for a reduction in large water consumption. Recommended action that the request for a reduction of a large water consumption charge be approved in the amount of $720.58. There was a report that's been included in this. It's quite self-explanatory, but I'll have a mover and a seconder, and then we can have discussion. Moved by Councillor Levy, seconded by. Do I have a seconder for this report? Councillor Rawson. Discussion. Seeing no discussion, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Carried. Number 2, Asset Management and Debt Management Financial Strategies Report, that the town's asset management and debt management financial strategies, the report be received for information and discussion. Moved by Councillor Rawson. Yes, you requested that. Seconded by Mayor Marshall. Discussion. Councillor Rawson.
So I'll start by saying thank you, Carrie. I hope everyone had a chance to dig into this and read this. I think it's awesome, and I appreciate Carrie's thoughtful work done on this. And I'm hopeful that we take some real time and consider a lot of the suggestions, ideas, and thought towards our budgetary process and our whole planning and procedure process. I think this has some merit to change the way we might do some of our planning, do our budgetary process, the way we do our policy and our planning. So I guess my one question will be, maybe to Carrie, how would you suggest or recommend we move forward? Because, you know, you made some great points in here about the asset management reserves, and I know I brought that up several times. I'd like to see that, and that we allocate percentages or however we do that. We've talked about our last budgetary process. We talked about Paul had several requests for new fire trucks, $500,000. We said we couldn't do it, so we split it in two, and quarter of a million here, $250,000 there. We already know the truck's life cycle is 20 years, so we should be putting $25,000 aside each year. Like, to me, this isn't rocket science, and what I'm reading, what Carrie's suggesting to us, so let's just create some policy that just naturally happens. So 20 years from now, we're not saying let's find $500,000, which then is going to be $750,000 to buy the truck. So I really like everything that you've outlined, Carrie, and I'm not saying we can accomplish all overnight, and I don't think that's reasonable, but, you know, a lot of these little things about creating the policy for capital, percentage of taxation, and remaining our debt payments, that they don't go down, they always stay there, and reapply it to other debt plans. I really like that we allocate a percentage of our taxation towards debt management, towards our assets. So I like a lot of the things. Some might be a goal for this year, some might be a goal for next year, but I really want us to think about this. I just hope we just don't accept this and just put it on the shelf. Like, there's teeth here, and let's make this happen. So, you know, how can you really direct us to make this happen? Because I think these are keys to our success. And my other inquiry is about our capital plan. To me, you know, we talked a little bit about here about the criticality aspect of a lot of our capital aspects, and should that be involved with the capital planning process, and I think that's great. But I wonder why we limit that to 5 years. Like, we should know with great regard right now, what is it? So why are we limiting this to a 5-year? Aren't we looking at this as a 10-year plan as an example of our capital stuff? I just want us to look more at a longer horizon, and what's our next step? How can we help make this happen?
Thank you very much, Councillor Rawson, and I would look to our treasurer to answer some of those questions.
Thank you, and thank you for your comments, and I would appreciate any other council members' comments regarding this document, because it is just a starting point to bring some of those strategies forward to discuss. Just in terms of your comment related to the capital plan, on an annual basis, we do present to council through the budget process a 5-year capital plan. Internally, though, just to let you know that internally we do work on a 10 to, at some departments, sometimes we do work on a 10 to 20-year capital plan. I think ideally when all of our assets are input into our asset management plan, all of the other assets, in addition to the core assets that are already in our asset management plan, and that's complete, we'll certainly have a life cycle in terms of the capital planning process. And again, in an ideal world, we would be putting away money annually for future replacement. Unfortunately, as all municipalities, we face that infrastructure funding gap in terms of replacing everything. That's the whole goal in terms of getting our asset management plans improved, up to date, in all encompassing in terms of all of our assets with all of our replacement cost information. And yes, the tough part is then going to be funding all of that. This document just is intended to bring some of the practices forward that we already do, and I think we don't think of it as a financial strategy just because it's something that we regularly do throughout the budget process. But when you start to put it down on paper, we do already complete some of these financial strategies that the asset management plan should contain, debt management strategy should contain. We are doing some of those strategies. In terms of the other ones that I think we may have discussed in the past or we may have brought it up in conversation, certainly I would like to hear back from all council members in terms of which one tweak their interests, which ones would you like to see more discussion on or more information provided on. But certainly what I would like to do is bring these practices or these strategies back in the forefront during the budget process so that we can consider what are we doing and how can we increase and improve our financial strategies for asset management and debt management, as well as annually during our, for example, our surplus analysis process that we go through annually. So that would be my intent, would be to bring back that information during those phases.
Okay, thank you, Carrie. Mayor Marshall, and then...
Thank you very much. So I guess, a couple things in terms of the 10-year capital plan, just for council's information, and I guess for our new CAO. So Brian and I presented the first 10-year capital plan to the Minister of Infrastructure. I think it was in 2012. We're the only municipality in the province of Ontario to drop that onto his doorstep. And to Brian's credit, that became the template across the province. So, so there's been some good work on this over the years. In terms of the, if I look at one of the recommendations is, we tuck away money every year. So we actually started that this year because we actually, rather than decrease taxes because of the positive impact of the county tax increase at the county level, we actually tuck away, Carrie, if I'm correct now, we've secured in our budget about $135,000. So if we did a zero budget next year, within that number would be $135,000 to go into our asset management. Do I have that correct?
Are you talking about the 2016
Yes.
transfer?
Yes.
Sorry, the numbers escaping
So,
me, but it was
last year
was about 215.
Yeah, 215,000, so I was a little light on that, because last year, rather than go down to zero because of the impact, the county said, no, we'll keep our increase at 1.5 or whatever the number was, and that allows us to take 200,000 or 215 and drive it right in there. So we've made some very good positive steps. We've got a good 10-year plan. To Councillor Rawson's point, we can revisit that. We've already anchored in 215,000. We don't have to increase taxes to do that next year. That 215 lives to buy fire trucks. So I like the thought of bringing it up at the budget, but I would challenge staff, and I look at our CEO, to come back with us, what is your recommendations, right? So you are the financial experts here. You and Brian and Jeff and our team should sit down and go, here's the practices that we think we want to present to council for their consideration. I do know from the county, and I agree with Councillor Ross, and this is a long conversation. We can't solve it in at the end of a council meeting, but I think this is like a good 2-hour session of special council meeting, and you walk us through that debt, you walk us through the cash flow over the next 20 years, and then we can make some wise decisions. But I think wise decisions come from staff who live and breathe this 365, 724. Get back to us and say, guys, here's what I really think we should be doing based on our budgets today, based on the fact that we have $200,000 already driving in there, and based on the fact that you know better our 20-year plan than we would. But I'd really enjoy that. I think it should be part of the budget, and I agree with Councillor Rawson. This is well done. It's great food for thought, but I think it's food for thought for a special item, where we just do nothing but chatter way through that conversation. Well done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Marshall. I will, Councillor Rawson, and then our CAO, and I understand that Mike wants to speak too. So Councillor Rawson?
Yeah, thanks. I just had a quick follow-up for Carrie. I know, Brian, I believe we had new asset management software 2 years ago or so, and I know there's been a lot of work done on that, and I know, Carrie, you're just saying I don't expect it to be done overnight, but you said when the rest of it gets put in there, we'll have a better gauge. I'm just wondering, how long do we think that's going to take? Like, will we have this report in 2 years, in 3 years, in 1 year? Like, when do we expect that to be up to date in this software to help us make better decisions?
Our asset manager currently is working on completing all of the assets into our asset management software. There is a deadline in terms of our federal gas tax funding, that for future gas tax funding, your asset management plan has to include all of your assets that gas tax funding can be used for, which is basically all of our assets. So that is anticipated to be completed by all municipalities by the end of this calendar year. And also there has been new discussions and new asset management requirements. The CAO and myself attended a ministry legislative asset management consultation regarding some new legislation that will be coming out regarding asset management planning and requiring all municipalities to update, setting the parameters around an annual asset management practice and updating asset management plans. And I believe at that consultation they had said that in addition to updating your asset management plan, you have to have an asset management policy in place, financial strategy in place, so on and so forth. And I believe that deadline was about January 1, 2018. So yes, within a year to a year and a half, well, less than a year and a half, we are going to be legislated. We anticipate to have all of this done and in place, along with all of Ontario.
Okay. Mr. CAO?
I was just through you, Chair Dubois. I was just going to add to what Carrie said, and I think Carrie's done an excellent job of highlighting everything, as has already been alluded to by several members of council. The one piece, and I guess to further that, certainly during the budget process, and I think Carrie would concur, that that's an excellent opportunity for us to bring forward some recommendations. And certainly Carrie and I have had some initial conversation about that. But in an attempt to get things in front of you, that's kind of why we expedited getting this report in front of you. But absolutely agree. I think making some recommendations, as from a staff perspective, through the budget process is ideal. The one comment I would make, and we will be cognizant of this when, through Carrie's recommendations, but there's a lot of great opportunities here, but we need to be sure that we're not tying our hands too tight, that in future years we have to break policy to provide us that flexibility, I guess. So from a staff level, we will be cognizant of that, but I wouldn't suggest that we can implement every single phenomenal idea that's out there, because I think we will absolutely limit ourselves, but we'll be cognizant of that during our recommendations.
Thank you. Councillor Lauder.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you very much, Carrie. I really like the conversation that's going on so far, and that was my conversation originally, was what are our next steps? We've got some great ideas and how do we go on from here, so I appreciate the conversation that has gone on there. I'd also like to, I don't want to just leave it up to staff to come, because once again, I want to challenge council. I mean, we've got some great minds here, and we've got some good thoughts of past practices and future practices. So certainly council themselves can not necessarily rank all these, but if you've got some comments, I've highlighted some of these that I think are more important. And as such, certainly council could send an individual email in, and not as direction, just as a comment, and would help staff in order to come back to us with suggestions. My biggest comment, though, is that I actually read this several times, especially 2.2D and the ARL, the town's annual repayment limit. Now, I don't mind talking to you individually, Carrie, about this, but I just couldn't get my head wrapped around what you were saying and how this applies, not necessarily how it applies, but whether we want to go up and down and that sort of stuff. So I don't mind that conversation being in private later, But no, I'm very happy with where we are.
Very good. Thank you, everyone, for all your comments. Good report, and I'm sure it'll be very useful as we move forward. Do I have a mover and a seconder, Madam Clerk? Oh, well, I do.
Yes, Councillor Rawson and Mayor Marshall.
Very good, thank you. So I will call for the vote. All those in favor? Carried. Move on to item number 3, a recommended action that the amended budget procedure policy and the 2017 budget timelines be approved. Carrie and I did have a conversation about that today, so I will ask for a mover and a seconder, and then I will ask Carrie to comment. Councillor LaRue, and seconded by Councillor Rawson. Carrie, maybe if you just wanted to bring a few points forward before we have council discussion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Basically, the budget procedure policy is just being revised and brought back to council for an amendment, basically to make it more generic so that future annual revisions aren't required. Also, replacing the reference to Finance and Corporate Services section to Committee of the Whole, the new structure, and just basically taking out some dates or months specifically and just saying here is the time frame that we regularly or typically go through the budget process, being from start to finish, if we're lucky in December, but it's usually August to December. The only time we've really gone past December has been in a election year where we went into January for approval. But really, it's just to clean it up in terms of the references made to FCS.
Thank you very much, Carrie. Is there discussion from members of council? Councillor Rawson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I kind of find the way that we do this a little bit backwards, being that a lot of time and energy and effort's put forward by staff, and then like 6 weeks later we sit down and we kind of say where we think it should go. And, you know, if we look at the last year, we all had different thoughts about, subsidized recreation program, free ski, whatever it was. And then staff says, okay, I'll go back, and they scratch it out and re-add the numbers and come back with another version. I actually think we should start with us first and say what's our goal and our objectives for the year. I'm not going to go line by line saying, you need 10 pens instead of 20. But let's come up with a goal and objectives of what do we want to accomplish. Then staff can go figure it out. Because they can come to us saying, we need an extra $1 million for 100 new staff. We can say, good for you. But why don't we start by saying, let's hire 100 staff? I just think we should start with us. What are some of our goals and objectives, what would we like to do? Let them take it and figure it out and come back with some solutions for us, and then we can go through the process. It seems to me 6 weeks into it, a lot of time and energy has been put into this where we can just give a little bit of direction and objectives through the process.
Thank you, Councillor Rawson. Mayor Marshall?
Certainly don't disagree with that thought at all, Councillor Rawson. In fact, at the county level, that's exactly what we do, is we actually go in and we have a strategic planning day and we lay out what we want to do in the next 24 months to 12-month period. And at the end of that day, we look at staff and say, okay, here's what we want to do, and you cannot come back to us with any more than a 2% tax increase or whatever that number may be. So you go away with marching order going, here's my upset limit. When you come back with that, council may challenge, why the fire truck's not in instead of the bus or whatever. We do get into those summer conversations, but we do have a special half day. We all sit there, the staff walk through their departments, what they did last year, what they're proposing for next year. Council inputs into the staff on those thoughts, and then at the end of the day give them some direction. But I don't disagree that it sets expectations nicely when we come back going, here's 2%. Not to say council can't say, listen, I want to go 3%, I want to do more, or I want to go 0% because I want to do less, but it does start you off at a more level playing field. So I don't know whether we have time to accommodate that, but I'm 100% with Councillor Rawson that a healthy conversation from council up front saves a lot of staff effort on the back end of this conversation.
Thank you for those comments. Yes, and it works very well at the county. Is there an opportunity, Carrie, or through to the CAO, that we might entertain a half day to look at our future for next year prior to getting in to too much staff work?
I'll certainly review our existing budget timeline with the calendar, with the CAO, and see what we can arrange to do that.
Very good. Do we have to make an amendment to this, or can we just approve this as it is, knowing that we're going to work towards having that discussion? Councillor Rawson.
I think this is important. I think a lot of time was wasted. I'll give you an example. And this wasn't the budget process, but we spent a lot of time talking about a bouncy castle thing out in the water, and some thought it was good and others. Then we had the discussion about splash pad. How much time, energy, and effort was put into bouncy castles in the water? This is no different. Like, I think we should put this upstream. Let's do the work up, and then let staff figure it out. I think we need to make it happen. I would say why don't we just defer back to staff, and they can bring back the changes that need to happen, instead of approving the policy as is.
Can I have a motion to that effect, or Mayor Marshall?
Actually, maybe rather than look for Councillor Rawson to support this or not, but rather than do that, why don't we just say, listen, we're going to kick this off for the start-up evening session, so for council input. So insert, so you got your calendar, somewhere in front of that first date, we're going to do a special council meeting to talk about the budget, strategic plan, and staff will have to report in on, here's my department. So Brian said, here's my priorities last year, here's what I hit, here's what's carrying over that I didn't get done from last year, here's what I want to do next year. And we have that conversation. I couldn't agree more that it saves a lot of work, and it gives council good input and good direction to you. So there's no surprises when you come back to it. So I'd like to insert a date unless the CEO thinks that's problematic.
Sorry, I'll let Carrie go ahead, and then I'll chime in after.
Just a question to clarify, just in terms of timing and where we can arrange this. Do you anticipate seeing a first draft of the budget, or is this a preliminary conversation before the first?
It's really staff coming at the council level, and I looked at council first supported, but at the county level, the staff come in going, here's what I did last year. So it's kind of a year in review, including what they didn't get done, because we thought we were going to do something that didn't happen. So we kind of understand the state of the nation year end, and then here's my priorities for next year, and here's what I'd like to do, and then we talk about those priorities and go from there.
Yeah. Mr. CAO?
I just wonder if it would be prudent of us to report for Carrie and I offline to discuss some tactics or some techniques, and perhaps we can report back in 2 weeks with an amended. Just because I have a few things sorting in my head, and I can see the wheels turning in Carrie's head as well. So if that's appetite for council.
So are you suggesting that we defer this evening?
Refer back to staff.
Refer back to staff.
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't need a motion for that, Madam Clerk?
Councillor Rawson.
Okay. Councillor Rawson.
My only thing is reading the timetable that Carrie's brought forward, that's just going to delay us, right? Because it goes to committee in 2 weeks. It delays us. Why can't we just pass this with some tweakage that staff come back to insert a council planning day here? You can tweak the language and where it fits, but I think we're all on the same page. And then when it comes to council in 2 weeks, we ratify the change, or we discuss the change that comes forward. I'm just
Mr. CAO, could you comment to that, or Madam Clerk?
Well, I think, to be fair to staff, this is the first we're hearing about it, and ideally, I think we would have an opportunity to, without thinking on our feet, to try to determine when it might best fit, and if we have to adjust the schedule accordingly. And really, I'm just trying to be fair to Carrie in terms of timing. It may mean that we need to bump things out a little bit or slightly. That would be my suggestion to committee, that we refer it back. If it does, there is a bit of time that was built in at the end, and I don't want to speak for Carrie, so I think we do have some flexibility if we do need to amend it. I want to be sure that we're not handcuffing ourselves, while we really haven't had a chance to digest what has just been dropped on staff.
Okay, Mayor Marshall?
So if I could maybe, and look to CEO to concur, because I agree with Councillor Ross and don't want to back up the bus, but if we actually pass the motion tonight that the budget process will commence with a gathering of council to discuss the budget priorities for 2017. We're in committee of the whole, so if we pass that tonight, you've got 2 weeks to actually tell us 2 weeks from now, so one of us can pull the item 2 weeks from now for discussion, and we can update then, so that way you got your 2 weeks to think your way through it, and we're not slowing down the process, and I think it's a kind of a win-win for everybody, and I appreciate your point that we're catching you off guard here, but I think that gives you 2 weeks and we don't slow down the process.
Through you, Chair DeBow, I think that would accomplish what I'm trying to accomplish.
Okay. So I'd move that, and look for council, a friendly amendment that council meeting to discuss strategic priorities in 2017 occur prior to the budget process. And I'm looking at Stacy, who doesn't like my recommendation.
Yes, Councillor Rawson and then Stacey.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what Carrie said is there's a policy document in front of us, so then she doesn't have to come to us every year to change this. So there's two things before us, a policy that says this is how we're going to do it, and then as well after that, there's a budget timeline for this year according to this new policy. So if we look at the policy, item 2A is the map, right? 1, treasurer distributes annual budget working papers. 2, CEO and the treasurer, da-da-da. All I'm saying is why don't we make 1 the council discussion night, and then treasurer becomes 2, and CEO becomes 3, and CMT becomes 4. Just make that 1, and then that's all we're asking. And then do what you got to do with your timeline. I don't care if it's next February. Everything will just flow according to the way you want it. I think that's what I'm hearing. Let's
I agree.
just don't put dates. Let's just put it first.
Okay, Carrie, you wanted to comment?
That is what I understood, and not a problem to implement it that way. I think what the CAO and I need to discuss is the fact that the meeting that you now want to occur has to happen before in the existing schedule, where we get the first draft back from senior managers by September 19th. They don't want to spend their time on their first draft, I don't believe, until we have had the meeting that you're talking about to get budget priorities from council to staff. So that, I think we are going to have to push the process back, but that's fine because, like the CEO said, we did leave some room.
Mr. CAO.
The other comment I would make is I have a few ideas in terms of how we can engage council outside of simply a meeting, and I think Carrie may have some as well, and perhaps in addition to a strategic planning meeting. So that's really what I'd like an opportunity to, again, with Carrie and I sitting roughly 20 feet apart and just hearing this for the first time, I'd like an opportunity to chat with Carrie, and I think we can absolutely accomplish what has been requested. I just want to be sure that we're not handcuffing ourselves, that's all.
Okay, Madam Clerk.
So just to clarify, we're not looking to, I just want to make sure, are we still looking to approve this motion so that the amended budget procedure policy and the 2017 budget timeline be approved? Or not at all? Because I was going to say,
correct.
And that staff be directed to move forward with the budget planning meetings to determine priorities for 2017 to amend the budget timeline.
No, I think we're going to refer
Back to staff.
Refer back to staff.
Okay.
So do I need a motion for that? Yes, and I do have a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Rawson, seconded by Councillor Saunders. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Great, good stuff. Okay, number 4, access to town-owned communication towers and facilities policy report. Recommended action that the access to the town-owned communication towers and facilities policy be approved as presented. This report, Carrie has spent considerable time putting this together. We have had requests from different organizations that want to use our towers, and I think before we move forward with that, we certainly needed this policy. So have a mover and a seconder, moved by His Worship, seconded by Councillor LaRue. Discussion? Yes, Councillor Louder.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have 2 minor comments. The first one is under policy 1D, town has right to refuse access. I'm assuming that this is talking about town staff taking these actions. I'd just like to a friendly amendment to this policy and with the words subject to council approval or simply a notice be given to council so that council's aware of all situations whereby the town is refusing access to a business or some sort of entity. So that was my first comment. And my second comment was, I'm feeling the pricing is very attractive. And I'm just wondering, going down to terms and consideration, 3.2 license fees, and year 1, 2, 3, 4, just wondering if at the time of the agreement, do you set those values in there, or is there a percentage increase each subsequent year? So just how the subsequent years after the first year is calculated.
Thank you for your question, Harry. I'll ask you to answer that question, if you can.
Yes, thank you. The fees in Schedule A are new fees, so they would form part of our composite fee schedule. And some of our fees some of our fees have annual cost of inflation increases attached to them. Others don't. They just are reviewed whenever we do the composite fee review, bylaw review. So we could do it either way. $150 in terms of our highest infrastructure being our towers. We have confirmed and been told by a gentleman that works for Grey County and is in IT that $150 is a standard average going monthly rate. Then I referred back to our Lacleda-LeBay agreement where they rent our tower space, and their annual fee works out to be almost $145 a month. So we're in the same range. So.
When you first when they first sign up, do you set the 5 years at 150, or is there, or because we don't review policy pricing every year, so do you give them a 150 plus 155, 160 subsequent years, or do you just give them the 150 for the 5 years? But more importantly, I do feel the comment regarding termination. I think because that situation has happened in the past, whereby someone's been refused, staff has refused a situation, and then council finds out about it later, and there's been some miscommunication, it seems like. So I just want to ensure that council knows when an entity has been refused a policy or a request.
I don't believe any entities would be refused unless, all requests would go to council. The clause so that the town, I guess meaning council, may refuse access could be that we're at our limit, we're at our capacity in terms of access that we can give to outside organizations on our infrastructure. So that's just a clause in there. In terms of the annual, I believe the Laclede licensing agreement was, I don't know if it was 5 or 3 years. So they did have the same rate for however long the agreement was for, and then when the agreement was renewed, it was increased. Some of the requests that we're dealing with are probably going to be looking for longer-term agreements, so we may want to include, and I can include, in any negotiations or proposal to council, that there be an inflationary increase on an annual basis to these rental amounts.
Thank you. Councillor Rawson?
Thanks, Madam Chair. Quick question, then I'll have a follow-up. Is this kind of in line with that point-to-point presentation we had about 8 months ago where they're asking if they can put their hardware on our towers and da-da? So that kind of accomplishes that. Is there other people kind of asking to use our infrastructure for that? Or, like, there's a lot of people knocking on our door, emailing us saying, hey, can I put some stuff on your stuff?
We have received, council did receive a presentation from Point to Point, and you will see that report come back at the next Committee of the Whole meeting. along with another request that we received from a third-party agent of Bell Mobility that wants to also access our facility for a different purpose, but again, it was just another request to access our facilities. So I thought we better work on a policy that we could consistently address and reply to these requests. So you will see those two requests at the next Committee of the Whole meeting.
So my only concern with this policy as it stands today, I remember that presentation clearly from Point to Point. I think he's here in February. And they're trying to expand their broadband capture. $150 are a high end and $50 are a low end. You know, it almost sounded to me like they were giving away everything. Like they were, if we could arrange some in February, they were, we'll maintain your servers and we'll update this, and if that fails, we'll update that, and we'll do this, we'll do this. And there was a lot of skin in the game to help protect our infrastructure. It appeared to be, to me, that was something they're very interested in. This seems to me like anybody that wants us, we're basically giving it to them, because who's kidding who? They sign up one person with broadband that pays for that month's service. So it seems a little, I know your guy in gray said it's, you know, the norm, but it seems a little generous to me. I want to make sure we're looking out for the best interest of the municipality, and that, you know, we can make sure that we're going to take care of our assets moving forward. I'm just worried that this might be a little loosey-goosey, and every little entrepreneur that wants to get into whatever the flavor is, that they're going to be able to use our infrastructure to capitalize off of. So that's my concern with it, because they were hot to trot, that thing. And Point to Point does a good job, don't get me wrong. I think we've got to really think about this one.
Right. But if I can remember that presentation, they weren't prepared to give us any monetary dollars. But, well, perhaps. Councillor LaRose.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wonder, we were all just at AMO. I'm sure through AMO we could find out what people charge for their water towers. Every small town has a water tower. If you drive around, you look, everyone has an aerial, some sort of communication device on top, so other municipalities are doing this, so maybe we should just try and find out a little more clear and concise what the average normal rent is before we proceed.
Thank you. Carrie, if you'd like to, I think you did do some investigation.
Yes, we did, and it was a IT director of an upper tier community that it did advise us that $150 a month was the standard average. And I did access their website and their policy and their rate schedule. So it was similar. The rate schedule was similar, and he did talk about the fact that the higher somebody wanted to go, the higher that you would charge. So we didn't feel that we were going to have different rates on one tower, but that we would have different rates on different facilities. I don't know. I mean, not everybody is going to want to access all of our sites out there. Secondly, as far as who council allows to access their sites, which, of course, the licensing agreement does address that the person accessing the site would have to ensure that it doesn't affect, I mean, they're not touching our equipment, they're not using our equipment, they're just accessing our infrastructure and our sites to locate their own equipment. They do have to ensure that our network is not being impacted any way. The chief water operator confirmed with me that before La Clé de la Baie could, or the radio station could install on our water tower, they had to provide an intermodulation study that proved that their signal didn't impact ours and whatnot. As far as who wants to request it, I mean, ultimately council has the authority to approve, and if it's not to the overall benefit to the town, the corporation of the town of Penetanguishene, or the residents itself, again, council can refuse, access. So In terms of point-to-points presentation, there was discussion that they were going to concentrate east and west of town limits that would benefit residents that don't have the greatest services on either the east or west ends. And as far as the Bell Mobility request, again, it would benefit users of our facility, let's say, because they want to install some of their equipment at the arena. So again, it could be on a case-by-case basis, and if it doesn't, in general, benefit our residents, where the benefit is not existing or it's being an improved service, then council could agree or could refuse.
So Carrie, what you're saying, that as these requests come forward, there will be a report to council?
Definitely.
And council will ultimately make the decision?
Yes.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Rawson.
So I get everything, all those points. I also get that we're trying to increase service and reliability and deliverable access to communications to the community as a whole. I wonder if we're better served, instead of saying, you know, Bob's Communications wants to set up at Gilwood Park, he signs his agreement for $50. Why don't we change this that says, you know, instead of it being site derived, you have access to all our sites. Instead of paying $50 here and $50 there, it's what, all this adds up to $1,500 a month, so it's $1,500 a month. You have access to all of our spots. So now you got people that are really into the game. They're committed to the community as a whole instead of one little area, and they probably have the financial backing to make this happen and not collapse a few months down the road. And then we have a better retention and better ability to expand the scope of services to the community. And I think it might be easier than sending out invoices for $50. So I would argue that, you know, you want to be a player with communication in our community, you want to use some of our infrastructure, go ahead. It's $1,500.
We've had good discussion on this particular item. I think this is a good start. And the fact that all requests into the municipality will come before council, I don't know. I'm prepared to call for the vote and see where this goes. And thank you, Councillor Rawson, for your comments. I'm sure they've been heard. Yes, Treasurer Carey.
If I could just make one final comment in response to Councillor Rawson's comments. I don't disagree. It's, I mean, we had to try to come up with something, and we had two very different requests. So we were trying to accommodate both. One potential company wanting to access one, several, or all of our sites versus another request, excuse me, that wanted to access one site. So we were trying to accommodate that. I do agree, I don't disagree with your comment, because it would make it a lot simpler, not knowing who's installing where and who's installed what, and monitoring and charging and billing. I don't disagree with your comment.
Final comment, Councillor Rawson. Oh, yes.
Our procedures require people to speak once to a motion,
Yes.
twice with the concurrence of the council. And in that last count, my colleague to the right, who I respect very highly, has spoken now 5 times. I would ask you to enforce the procedural bylaw.
That is correct.
Sorry, yeah, I looked at the clerk, but that's the rules of engagement at council, at committee of the whole. You can chatter about till the chair calls it. Yep, yep.
Is that,
No, we don't have to suspend here. The rules are you can ask as many as you are, but I think the question's been called by the chair and
Yes.
should call it.
I did call the question, and I think we've heard you loud and clear, Councillor Rawson, so I have a mover and a seconder. So, a recorded vote. Thank you. Good.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So Councillor Rossin has called for a recorded vote on the motion that reads that the access to town-owned communication towers and facilities policy be approved as presented. Councillor Rossin.
Opposed.
Councillor LaRue. Councillor Lauder.
In favor.
Councillor Saunders. Councillor Mayette.
In favor?
Councillor LaRose. Councillor Levy.
In favor?
Deputy Mayor Gibault.
In favor.
Mayor Marshall.
In favor.
That motion is carried.
Thank you. Okay, Council, we will move on to number 5, retention schedule update report, that the Records Retention Bylaw 2015-54 be amended to reflect the updated legislative requirements, and that staff be directed to bring forward the necessary bylaw amendment for council approval. Moved by, can I have a mover and a seconder for this item? Councillor Levy and Councillor LaRue, thank you very much. Discussion?
Just a question.
Yes, Councillor Saunders.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just have a quick question. Back some time ago, this council passed, and I can't recall if it was in our goals or whatever, but we agreed that we had to conduct business in accordance with the legislation. We don't have a choice in that. So as the legislation changes, it seems to me it should be axiomatic that we just fall into line with the new legislation. My question being, why is this motion necessary?
Madam Clerk, could you answer that question?
Most certainly. This is just a standard procedure that we go to when we are making amendments to the policy to keep council informed, as well as then to bring forward direction to further direct that bylaw. Of course, we will always amend to current legislation, but that legislation is governed by the Town of Penetanguishene by bylaw, so that is passed by council.
Thank you. Yes, Your Worship.
Just when it comes to retention, so when I read the document, I was kind of surprised, and maybe it falls under the municipal, I guess, I don't know where it falls now. It used to be municipal affairs and housing, so I don't know whether it's on the housing side or the affairs side, but I guess on the affairs side. So in terms of retention of emails, right, so right now the legislation says that, as council members here, for instance, all our emails are fair game for an FOI. All our emails, if they're work-related for personal computers, are FOI-able. Our cell phones, text messages, they're all FOI-able. And so this policy does not speak to, number one, the town's obligation to keep our corporate records, these ones, and then as members of council, if I happen to send out an email address from, jerry@yahoo.com, I need to keep that as well, because that's, if somebody has the freedom of information, I send, Deputy Mayor from my personal email account to hers on town-related business, that's FOI-able. So I'm not seeing any of that contained here, so I was kind of thought that was either absent or should be there.
Yes, Madam Clerk.
Absolutely, you're absolutely right. In fact, that's actually a separate policy that we're working on currently, specifically related to that. The digital files are mentioned in our records retention bylaw, but you're right, it's very vague and not as specific as we'd like it to be. So you'll see that policy actually coming forward, specifically related to town business and how any records should be conducted electronically to make sure that they are in fact controlled by the municipality.
Thank you.
Very good. Further discussion? Councillor Lauder.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick question, and it's just for my mind. Are these retention period changes effective on all new documents as of the period that this is accepted forward, or do the changes affect old documents that have yet not expired?
Oh, Madam Clerk over here will answer that question.
Thank you, Councillor Lauder. Yes, record retention does fall under the activities of the Clerk's Department, so I can speak to that. And all records retention, as the records retention bylaw is changed, the current records that we hold in our process now are affected. So anything that we have, obviously we can't go back and recreate things that have been destroyed, but they are for the current records of now.
Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried. Referrals to upcoming agendas, that the Finance and Corporate Services section endorse the following additional and existing referrals to upcoming agendas and to staff. Resident reporting system, community engagement initiatives, land sale policy review, minutes distribution timetable, taxi license review, sign bylaw review, smoking policy on parks and town property, election 2018 timelines, asset management and debt management strategies, which we have some of that tonight, so perhaps that can come off the list. Audit, RFP, 2017 budget for special events, composite fee schedule comparisons, insurance joint RFP review, and banking services RFP. Are there any items that need to be added? Councillor Saunders.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Not an item to be added, but I'm puzzled by the time frame beside the taxi license review and the signed bylaw review. At the time this council passed those and asked that those be reviewed, at no time in my memory did we make any mention of winter 2017. It was, Councillor Rawson was quite specific that time and time again we have had requests for exceptions to our sign bylaw, and we wanted to get that done. So I don't understand the notation in winter 2017. Is a suggestion we're not going to get this done until 2017? Our clerk has asked for councillors to sit on both committees, and my understanding is she had success in getting councillors to sit. So I'm just puzzled as to why this is taking so long. Particularly the taxi people are very anxious to get this done.
Thank you for your comments, Councillor Saunders. I will ask the clerk to respond.
Thank you, Councillor Saunders. In fact, I'm as disappointed as you are in terms of the timeline that's been placed there, just probably because that is truly where it will end up. I probably will be seeking direction from council in the future, because as much as I have received members of council that have agreed to be on that review committee, I have not received any members of the public applying to be on that very exciting committee. So whether we move forward without those members or how we proceed is kind of where I'm stuck.
So we may want to revisit the process.
Perhaps.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Thank you, Your Worship. Oh, question period from media or public. Our media is out of the room, and
I guess we're good. Elizabeth? No, she's good. Alrighty, so I'll look for a motion to adjourn, please. Councillor Rawson, Councillor Lauder, all in favor? We are adjourned at 9:24 p.m. Good night, everybody.
oh my.
Thanks for some review, Jim. The good thing I'm doing now is I understand that I have to change my response.